Our big focus? Well, during this bilateral visit to Brunei, Prime Minister Modi toured the Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque in Brunei's capital. He also inaugurated a new building at India's High Commission. And at the mosque, our Prime Minister was welcomed by Brunei's Minister of Religious Affairs with members of the Indian community in attendance. Earlier, Prime Minister Modi met Bruneian Crown Prince Haji Al Muhaddadi Billah, the heir apparent to Sultan Hassanal Bolkiah, upon his arrival. But our Prime Minister, as you know, is on a two-day bilateral visit, the first by an Indian Prime Minister before heading to Singapore. This visit actually aims to enhance cooperation in defense, trade and investment, energy, space technology, as well as the health sector. Meanwhile, in terms of geographical context, Brunei, which is strategically located on the island of Borneo, is smaller than Indian states like Sikkim and Tripura, but its Sultan's immense wealth and lavish lifestyle has repeatedly grabbed attention. In fact, the second longest reigning monarch in the world after the UK's Queen Elizabeth II, Bolkiah reportedly has a net worth of $30 billion, that's billion with a B. And Brunei is rich in oil and natural gas reserves, as has been highlighted by the MEA as well. But the most important aspect of Bolkiah's luxurious lifestyle that grabs eyeballs is actually his private car collection that's valued at about $5 billion. And it also includes a gold-coated Rolls-Royce and about 450 Ferraris and 380 Bentleys, believe it or not. My colleague Mohammed Ghazali has been tracking this visit very closely. He joins us live at the moment. Ghazali, as we've been discussing, India has been vocal and the MEA has said that we'd like to have more predictable hydrocarbon supplies with longer-term contracts from Brunei, especially in the area of gas. Take us through the key takeaways so far as the Prime Minister's touchdown is concerned.
See, you saw the Prime Minister being visited by the Crown Prince there, by the Prince of Brunei, and the Prime Minister also went to the Indian High Commission for inaugurating one of the Chancellor, a new building there, and then the visit to a mosque, which was built by the father of the current or the sitting Sultan there. And his father was also kind of inspired by the Mughal architecture back here in India. So there was an India connect as well. So the Prime Minister, now having visited all these places, will hold a bilateral talk with the Sultan of Brunei. And why this is very significant, because India and Brunei have very close relationship. We are importing hydrocarbon from Brunei. And in the near future, as MEA had issued in a statement saying that perhaps India will also be looking towards Brunei for its energy needs for natural gas import from Brunei. Besides that, India already has a satellite tracking station there in Brunei, which tracks our eastward launches of satellites and all. And India will start training or assist Brunei in space research and technology. So once we are providing them research and technology training, they are providing us space to establish they have already provided us space to establish our ground station to monitor our satellites there. But besides that, in this particular meeting, it is expected that our defense cooperation will be much more deeper, because the joint working group is expected to be constituted between India and Brunei. And that will be one of the key areas of focus between India and Brunei. Why this is relevant? Because we know that how India is now diversifying and reducing its reliance for defense procurement from one of the partners. So we have defense partnerships in Europe as well, and we are having it back here in Asia as well. So it is one of the key partners of India in Asia. And also from the point of view of our Act East policy, neighborhood first policy, we are also trying to stay in touch, warm our ties with all those countries in the Asian region, so that to counter the influence of China as well. So from that perspective as well, from maritime security point of view, Brunei is very relevant as far as its geostrategic location in the center of Indo-Pacific Ocean is concerned. So from that point of view also, a coordination between India and Brunei when it comes to maritime security or defense cooperation or space technology. These are three key areas besides the trade, healthcare, and also one very important fact we should not be ignored, that out of a very tiny population of 4 to 5 lakh population of Brunei, Indians are like around 14,000. The diaspora population is 14,000, and most of them are in very notable profession. Some are teachers, some are doctors. So that is also going to be a soft power of India as far as the presence in Brunei is concerned.
As always, Ghazali, thanks so much for joining us. With that, let's turn our attention now to what's happening as far as the Russia-Ukraine war is concerned. Well, Well, a Russian missile strike killed more than 50 people and injured scores of others on Tuesday, Ukrainian officials said, the latest in a series of devastating bombardments of Ukraine and one of the deadliest attacks of the 2.5-year war. In fact, 2 ballistic missiles hit a military academy and a neighboring hospital in the eastern Ukraine city of Poltava. This is what Zelensky has also confirmed. And Ukraine's Prosecutor General's office said 51 people were killed and rescue efforts were ongoing. The missiles struck with an unforgiving quickness, we're told. The Ukrainian Defense Ministry reported that the gap between the sounding of warning sirens and the strike was actually so short that many people were killed on their way to shelter. Here's what Mr. Zelensky had to say.
Обов'язково російська наволоч відповість за цей удар. Ми знову і знову кажемо усім у світі, хто має силу, щоб зупинити цей терор. Системи ППО і ракети до них потрібні в Україні, а не десь там на складі. Далекобійні удари, які можуть захистити від російського терору, необхідні зараз, а не колись потім. Кожен день зволікання – це, на жаль, загибель людей.
Meanwhile, Mongolia's failure to arrest Vladimir Putin on an international criminal court warrant dealt a heavy blow to the international criminal law system. This is what Ukraine's foreign ministry said as the Russian president arrived for talks likely to focus on a new gas pipeline connecting Russia and China. Ukrainian foreign ministry spokesperson has gone on record to say Mongolia has allowed an accused criminal to evade justice, thereby sharing responsibility for the war crimes. In other news, the US Justice Department has charged several Hamas leaders, including the group's head Yahya Sinwar, in connection with kidnapping and murdering American citizens during this 7th of October attack in Israel. It's actually the first step by the DOJ to hold the militant group accountable for orchestrating a deadly rampage, and US Attorney General Merrick Garland warned these actions will not be our last. Unlike his response to the war in Ukraine, where the DOJ actually mobilized an entire team to investigate war crimes, Mr. Garland has been nearly silent on the war in Gaza, despite experts largely agreeing the Justice Department has a strong case against Hamas.
Today, the Justice Department unsealed charges against Yahya Sinwar and other senior leaders of Hamas for financing and directing a decades-long campaign to murder American citizens and endanger the security of the United States. As outlined in our complaint, those defendants, armed with weapons, political support, and funding from the government of Iran and support from Hezbollah, have led Hamas's efforts to destroy the state of Israel and murder civilians in support of that aim.
Meanwhile, the White House has confirmed that it had been informed of the UK's decision before it was announced and said that it did not affect American military support for Israel. This is after the UK limited certain arms sales to Israel. In fact, John Kirby said that they did give us a heads up that they had arrived at the decision and were going to announce the decision. So the National Security Council spokesman in the US said that they were indeed aware. Here's what Matthew Miller had to say.
Came to this conclusion. We have reviews that are ongoing. I don't want to prejudge what those reviews will conclude, but we are looking at a number of possible violations of international humanitarian law, and we'll make our own assessments based on our own review of the facts and our own judgments on our law as well as international humanitarian law.
Meanwhile, Mr. Netanyahu has condemned the UK government's decision to suspend some arms export licenses to Israel, describing it as a shameful decision that would embolden a genocidal Hamas. The Israeli Prime Minister said his country was at war to also protect British hostages and vowed the UK measures would not prevent it from winning the war in Gaza. For further clarity, we have with us international affairs expert Kamaraga. Thank you so much, sir, as always, for making time for us. Now, while the Labour government's decision has been facing a growing domestic backlash from all sides, is a deep diplomatic rift between Israel and the UK now likely?
Yeah, it's not much, because Britain is a very important and strategic ally of Israel. These are, friendly gestures, you can say, friendly. I don't think, ties are going to be affected. This is Prime Minister's personal views about Britain. Britain is one country which maintains not only strategic ties, but also send its naval forces around in that region to protect Israel. And in fact, when Israel was attacked by Iranians, it was the British, American, and French forces which virtually gunned down Iranian missiles and drones. So I mean, they have a very deep ties. Britain has helped establish Israel in 1948. It was so. I don't think ties are going to be affected. These are just a statement, issued by the Prime Minister, and he thinks, that it's not fair because since Britain is a very old and strategic ally of Israel.
Right, sir, but exempting the F-35 fighter jet program, essentially giving this program a blank check to continue despite knowing that F-35s are being used extensively in Gaza. Some actually are saying that the UK suspension of this arms exports is too limited and riddled with loopholes. Would you say this is a terrible decision for the future of arms control, and it also misses a clear obligation to hold Israel accountable for its war crimes?
Yes, in a way you can say, but it's basically a symbolic, 30 items out of 350, they have suspended their supplies. And most of these are basically spare parts used in fighter bombers or drones, mostly in these two sectors. Thirdly, the Britain is doesn't want to disrupt supplies of other items, but they said it is not a blanket ban on British supplies to arms supplies to Israel. They said it is not an arm embargo also. So arms will continue to flow into Israel from Britain or France or even United States. There are certain items which they don't want to say. The reason is, Parmeshwar, there's tremendous pressure from the public in Britain. These are the people, who have basically voted for Labour Party, the ruling Labour Party. They want, government should take some steps. And in fact, the Labour Party has promised, when they will come to the power, they will take certain actions against Israel. So it is in that, we must see in that connection, this step was taken. And it's a very temporary thing. It's not going to last long because number of reasons, which we have mentioned earlier.
Thank you so much, as always, sir, for joining us with those quick comments. Many are also arguing that this marks a shift in British foreign policy away from being lockstep with Washington when it comes to support for Israel. But we'll keep a close eye on all the developments. The UK sends Israel explosives, guns, and fighter jet components. But it isn't one of Israel's main suppliers, I must inform our viewers. In fact, the United States and Germany are Israel's biggest weapon suppliers. We'll keep tracking the latest for you. For now, we're slipping into a very short break. Back in a moment with much more. Don't go anywhere.